We have heard many statements from prominent individuals, largely in the political space, calling for the pardoning of Derek Chauvin. We have this from Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, I strongly support Derek Chauvin being pardoned and released from prison. George Floyd died of a drug overdose. We've got a bunch of other stories, too. The FBI investigating another attempted arson at a Tesla dealership. We've got Tesla doxing attacks, wrongly targeting non-owners. It is getting pretty dang intense in this country. I have another statement here, actually. No, I don't. But many people are agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene in calling for the pardoning of Derek Chauvin, which some fear could lead to riots. So joining us to have this conversation and talk about what's currently going on and get his take on things will be VivaFrei, who I am pulling in right now. Let's see if we get this to load properly. Sometimes it takes a second. There we go. We got Viva. He's popping in right now. Get this pulled up. Viva, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Just a second. You will see me in a second. Can you see me now?
I feel so dirty doing this digitally, Tim. We always see each other in person. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Not bad. I heard the news. I've been following the markets, but Chauvin hasn't yet hit 99% on the Kalshi markets.
No, he hasn't. Well, let's talk about it, man. There's a lot to break down in this case and a whole bunch of other cases and increase in left-wing violence. So the reporting is out of Minnesota. They're preparing for potential riots because they've been briefed on two things. One, that Trump may pardon Chauvin, but more importantly, that there may be preparations to move Chauvin from, I believe it's in Arizona, to Minnesota. I'm curious. I mean, so you're a lawyer. I know you are Canadian, but you have covered this and a bunch of other stories. I don't think they're going to do it. And just before we kick into the big picture on Summer of Love and all these riots and threats of violence, you think this could happen?
I don't think he would do it because there's no political benefit to doing it, period. There's no justice benefit because he's serving 21, 22 years for the state level conviction for which the pardon at a federal level will have no impact. Arguably, it would only make things worse if he gets transferred to a state prison in Minnesota where they probably want him dead anyhow. But no, there's no political benefit to be had from this. I followed the trial. I came in thinking he was guilty and came out thinking he would get acquitted, but wow. Politics is what it is. But no, I don't see why he would do it if only just to burn the entire system down. You pardon him federally, you know there's going to be riots, you know that people are going to go flipping crazy. It will only be a stain on his presidency, and it will have no impact because he's still going to rot away for 21 years on the state convictions.
Do you think, but I guess functionally, morally, should he be pardoned?
The trial was not fair. I mean, put it that way. Whether or not you even think he was guilty. I tell you this, I started off, I saw the video, I was shocked and outraged. Evidence is what it is, and I believe it's more likely than not, and certainly not beyond a reasonable doubt that he was guilty of George's death, that the guy died of an overdose. I mean, we know it now. The excuse that, he was a habituated drug user, so his tolerance level was higher. Horse crap. I mean, we're talking not about reasonable doubt anymore. Now we're talking about suspending disbelief. During the trial, the expert for Chauvin's expert at his former residence, they woke up with a severed pig's head. Witness intimidation. You had Biden coming out chiming in on the guilt. So there was nothing constitutionally fair about this trial. And it's not because I don't really like Chauvin. I don't think he's a very praiseworthy character on a personal level, tax fraud, a bunch of other crap. But no, he did not get a constitutionally fair trial. But there's no benefit to this type of pardon where he's going to stay in jail anyhow, I think. So I'll be shocked if they do it. It seems like an unnecessary battle to pick at this time. But who knows? Maybe it's a distraction that Trump strategically wants.
Just before I joined with you, I was having a great conversation with ChatGPT about the case. And it is fascinating how these AI programs are super liberal. And they always try to shift the context towards the liberal perspective. So I asked ChatGPT, did George Floyd have a lethal amount of fentanyl in his system? All I asked. And the response was, George Floyd had 11 nanograms per milliliter in his system. However, and then it gives me this big diatribe about all these different medical experts saying that it had nothing to do with it. I did not ask the robot if it did or didn't, just if it was a lethal amount. Following up, I asked it, what is the typical overdose level for fentanyl? 3 nanograms per milliliter.
It's It's amazing, Tim. I mean, I don't think it's leading you in that direction. I think it's aggregating the information from those sources to begin with. I've been having a fun one with I say fun, it's cynically fun with not Chat GPT, but Grok, about whether or not there's a white genocide going on in South Africa. And the answers are no, but they don't break down crime by race in South Africa. So like, how can you assert that there's no white genocide when South Africa's not breaking down crimes by race? And then you ask them what percentage of farmers that have been murdered since 1990 were white, and they say it's over 87%. So
wow.
you are battling. It's wild. You're battling. Excuse me. You're battling a system that it's aggregating its information from the sources that are out there, which are by and large left leaning, and then you correct it, and then it says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did not know that. I'll do better in the future," type thing.
It gets worse. I asked ChatGPT the other day about the infant rape crisis in South Africa, and it told me my question potentially violated its policies and removed it.
Maybe clarify for the pervert Chat GPT that you weren't asking for instructions, you were asking for information. No, it's like when they get questions like that and they derive it from there, they go to blue sky sources and like, yes, this is asking for illegal activity.
Right.
No, it's wild. But nobody can look at the Chauvin, the Derek Chauvin trial and say he got a fair trial. It was a foregone conclusion that as bad as the riots were after Floyd's death, they would have been exponentially worse after a Chauvin exoneration or finding of not guilty. So, but are they going to pardon him? Gee, there are much more worthy people on the list, and much more people on the list for whom a pardon will have a practical effect and not just a destructive effect for Trump's presidency, I would argue.
But that feels a bit utilitarian to me.
You're not wrong. I mean, as I say it out loud, I can say, don't do it because the backlash is going to be too grotesque and there will be no practical benefit to it. Flip side, do it as a matter of principle, even though it will have no positive impact. One is Kantian imperatives, categorical imperatives, don't lie and don't do things that are wrong. The other one is a consequentialist utilitarian sort of measurement. Will it do anything that'll be more positive than destructive? And will it have any practical impact on Chauvin? The answer is probably a hard no to that. But the trial was not fair. Anybody who says it was didn't watch it or is happy with the injustice.
The judge literally said it. The Judge Cahill, when there was a request to move venue, said he's not going to get any fairer trial anywhere in the state because it's already been heavily publicized. So it's going to happen here in Minneapolis under razor wire, armed guards, armed personnel carriers, and riots outside. And what's fascinating is just to I love harping on the AI thing just to mock it. When it tries to volunteer information I didn't ask for about why Chauvin is guilty, I then asked, is it a fair trial if the jurors are led into a courtroom under armed guard, razor wire, and riots? And it said no. In that circumstance, no fair trial was had. Not to mention, you mentioned who was it? Was it a pig's head?
Yeah, it was the Chauvin's expert. To the best of my recollection, I hope I'm not making a mistake. I don't think I am. There was a severed pig's head found at his former residence. And so the argument at the time was that it couldn't have been witness intimidation because it didn't happen at his current residence, but there was active witness intimidation. There was active presidential influence in this case. There was ridiculous media bias. And I'm fairly certain also in this particular case, there was basically a runaway jury, activist jury, who wanted to get on the jury to convict.
This is crazy. So I just checked it real quick, and you're right. It was Barry Broad, a retired police officer who had testified as a defense witness in Derek Chauvin's trial. He'd stated that Chauvin's restraint of George Floyd was consistent with proper police practices. And then someone tried to dox him, and they put a severed pig's head. I think it was like on his. Let me see. What did they say? Like,
I think it was on the porch of the former residence, so it wasn't his current address, if my memory.
And they what is it? They defaced a nearby statue with blood, leaving a sign that read "Oink Oink."
Can you imagine, like, even suggesting that this is mob rule? Activist jury members sneaking their way. Tim, it was. I get mixed up between all of these cases because Roger Stone had an activist jury floor person as well. This was the case where a guy basically admitted to having lied to get on the jury so he could convict him in the first place. I'm fairly certain it was in the Chauvin case.
I think it is. It is funny because when I was doing the research, I was like, wasn't there a journalist who chased the jury bus to try and figure out who the jurors were? And I thought that was Chauvin. I looked up, it was Kyle Rittenhouse. In the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, an NBC freelancer was stalking the jury bus. And I'm like, you know, all of these trials, I get confused about the evil things these leftists are doing to try and skew the legal system in their benefit.
But you remember the Roger Stone one? It was the jury floor woman who said that she wasn't politically active, didn't know it, had Facebook posts about Roger Stone, about Donald Trump. And when we watch the movie Runaway Jury, you say, no, that's too ludicrous. You know, they would have done their due diligence on John Cusack as the jury member. And you realize, like, in today's day and age, with the technology, with the social media footprint, they still get activist juror members to lie their way onto the jury, and then it's a done deal. And what are you going to do then? Hold another trial? I mean, anyways, the bottom line, though, Chauvin's going to rot in jail regardless, because they got him on the state charges, which were how you can go for state charges that are tangentially or even incidentally, let alone directly related to the federal charges. It's double jeopardy by its definition. I know legally it's not. It's just an issue that you know we have with Barnes and I with the American system is you're charging for state level crimes for the same crime. And so he goes away for 22 years at the federal level, 21 years at the state level. At least it's concurrent and not consecutive. And pardoning him will do nothing. And Marjorie Taylor Greene put out the tweet. And it wasn't to rag on her. It's just like he's not leaving prison one way or the other. So what good does this pardon do? But
go ahead.
I was going to say, but it does make people realize, you go look at the coroner report, the man had 3 to 4 times the normal lethal dose in his blood. He was caught sticking it in his mouth before, saying, I have breathing issues. If he had died without the intervention of Chauvin, they would have blamed it on COVID. So it is causing people to go and really look into it.
They did say he had COVID too.
He did.
That's crazy.
If there had not been police intervention, they could have proximately or causally, the way they did it for all the other COVID deaths, linked it to COVID. It was within a month or 2 months of his having COVID. They would have called it long COVID. It
was funny because it was actually a joke where people were tweeting how long until they say George Floyd had COVID, and then they released that he had COVID, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!"
No, you imagine a man with I don't attribute very much to COVID, but a man who ingested a lethal amount of fentanyl, and their argument was, well, he's a well-conditioned drug user, so they don't die. Who do you think dies from drug overdoses? It's not the novices, first-time users.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
Obscene.
They and this is just what I got from a cursory search. 3 nanograms per milliliter is the typical overdose, and he had 11. Overdoses are from habitual users typically. Like you mentioned, it's not like one dude one time just says, it's the first time I'll ever do it, and then just instantly drops dead. They're chasing that high, so they keep increasing their consumption until they overdose.
Well, and it's respiratory. It's respiratory failure.
I can't breathe.
You know, the autopsy, which didn't show compression marks on the neck, and the video looked so terrible, and it was branded and packaged and sold to the general public from a propagandized media perfectly. It creates lingering memories that are impossible to overcome, even after having watched the trial, even after having read the medical reports. But bottom line, the trial wasn't fair. I thought he ought to have gotten acquitted because I came in thinking guilt, and then I came out thinking there is very much a reasonable doubt. But I'll be very surprised if Trump actually pardons him.
You know, I agree too, largely because when Trump was asked about it, he was like, I don't know, like he's not heard of it. I don't see the functional reason to do it. I know there's the moral question of if it's the right thing to do, we do it. However, Trump would not only have to pardon him at the federal level, they would have to intervene to protect him from the state prison. And I don't know what you do. So let's say Trump pardons him at the federal level. He would go to a state prison that's arguably worse. Trump would have to pardon him and then have law enforcement protect him from extradition to Minnesota. Right now, Chauvin is in a low security prison, which after he got stabbed several times, I guess they moved him. I'm not sure exactly how it went down, but it sounds like he's not in the worst of possible, like Supermax. He's in like low security, you know, he's like wearing a white polo or something and drawing paintings or something. Hotep Jesus was on IRL. I think it was Hotep. And he said, you know what, man? For the greater good, we're going to knock down the wall between his cell and the next, give him a double wide, bring in some ladies and tell him this is your life from now on, but we're not pardoning you because that would just make everything worse. I do think we have a challenge in that if we can recognize we have the power to pardon somebody and we don't, we're basically saying that for political reasons, we would let innocent people suffer. That's a challenge, I guess.
Well, it is. This one's a little bit also a little bit different. I mean, you have to motivate the reasons for the pardon, I would imagine, because people are so indoctrinated to not even understand what went down during that trial. That was not copacetic. But I say, look, if the argument is that it is the right thing to do and therefore you should do it, well, then the argument's going to be there are a million other cases where it's right and it should be done as well. So how do you prioritize? Do you prioritize just because one is more politically relevant or more politically a hot topic? I mean, yeah, it's part of it at the federal level. And then what? You're going to try to get Harmeet Dillon in at the state level to prosecute for civil rights violations?
Yes.
But again, this is not the right case to do that on. Tina Peters is the right case to do that on in Colorado. Dexter Taylor out of New York for Second Amendment violations is where you do it. This is not even the right case to do that, where you're not even going to, again, it's just because he's been demonized and you think he's guilty or not innocent and deserves something. But this would not be the right case to do that. There's many, many more where it would be palatable, palpable, and more productive.
What is the you think that you said Tina Peters?
Oh yeah, Tina Peters, the Colorado, whistleblower who revealed or was looking into the Colorado elections and the fishiness around there, and they locked up this 67-year-old Gold Star mom for 9 years in Colorado. I mean, longer than rapists get in Colorado.
Wow.
And it's egregious. It's egregious. The trial was egregious. The judge was egregious. Activist judge. How familiar are you with Dexter Taylor?
No, what is that one?
Dexter Taylor is a 65-year-old. I say he's black not because I focus on identity politics, because when I interviewed him, he said, this is Democrat state's way of looking at black men, black people, and saying you don't get to defend yourselves. This man was assembling firearms in his own apartment, lawfully in quotes, from kits that he ordered online, that he lawfully procured, ordered in his name to his address, assembled firearms in his New York apartment, never took them out, never sold them, never did anything with them, gets raided, and then gets locked up for a decade in the state prison in New York, where a judge literally said in court, this is New York State. Don't bring in your Second Amendment arguments in here. The Second Amendment does not exist in this courtroom.
I remember this one, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I've been talking to him periodically from the Coxsackie Correctional Facility in New York. I just love saying the name of the place where he's at, but Coxsackie, who changed the name, people, or at least maybe it's Coxsackie. I'm pronouncing a hard CK. So, these are the cases where there's egregious civil rights violations that are constitutionally relevant. The argument will be a fair trial is constitutionally relevant as well, but I'd say tackle the lower hanging fruits of the egregious injustices before the politically divisive ones that will do more harm than good, I think, in the long run.
Have we seen these kinds of things in Republican jurisdictions?
The persecutions or no? I mean, you haven't seen neither the persecutions of innocent Democrats or the fighting back against the innocent persecutions of so-called conservatives in Democrat states. So they don't fight fire with fire. The red states can do similar things. They can do similar things, to the Faucis of the world, to bypass a bullcrap federal pardon. But red states can prosecute Fauci at state level crimes. No question. Do it. I mean, it's not even a question of fighting injustice with injustice. Fight injustice with justice.
I can see the appeal of being a Democrat now. Why these people are unscrupulous, why they lie on TV, why they push false narratives. You commit crimes and you get away with them.
Get away. You get rewarded. We all know what happened to Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. They get $1 million payday averaged out between the two. The man got 1.2 million. That's inequality right there.
Or the rioters in D.C. during Trump's first inauguration, who sued after getting arrested for rioting and won $1 million.
It's people don't even know about the January 2017 insurrection. I mean, it's not even two-tiered justice. It's lawlessness, and they know that they're on the unlawful wielding of every branch of government abuse of power. But as I say, you don't fight that type of fire with fire, and nor do you say, haha, to give you the middle finger, we're going to go pardon George Floyd now, and then try to go look into civil rights violations at the state level. I mean, pick targets that are, the Tina go to Seattle. Robert Barnes, my partner-in-law, pun intended, is representing a guy named Ben Souf, who they just locked up for years because they abused of every political process, the judicial process, and locked him up for texting his own kid in violation of a no contact order. Lock him up for years. So
wow.
Civil rights violations, there's plenty of them, and they seem to be occurring in blue states or blue cities within red states. Blue states.
I feel like if we don't have, there's a lot of questions about pardoning Chauvin. He might be in a better place, and it's sad to say, but when faced with the state prison of Minnesota versus the federal facility, Trump, the administration, they have control there. They can go there and say, look, if we pardon you, you're just going to state prison in Minnesota. We can't control that. We're gonna make sure things are nice and comfortable for you here, and we're sorry this is happening to you. So that is a challenge. But I just feel generally, and I think most people agree, Republicans aren't doing anything. Look, I'm in West Virginia. This is deep, deep red. They just won an entirely new Republican administration. They've done some good things. You know, they signed on to that artificial food dye ban, so they're on board. And I'm sitting here asking these guys. I've literally talked to them and said, I talked to a prosecutor in West Virginia, a state prosecutor, and I said, why aren't you charging the Biden-Harris officials in their campaign for the same garbage they went after Trump for? You could do it. If these people operated in your state to raise funds, anything they did is in furtherance of that crime, and you have jurisdiction, and they just shrug and they're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, they're doing it to Trump, though.
No, that's it. It's not even, I'd say it's not a question of fighting dirty with dirt. And it is, one is fighting the injustice with justice. You know, they're doing it with Leticia James now. A little too late, but my goodness, right. You don't have to scratch the surface very deep to find their egregious, documented criminality. And so they're doing with those two judges only because they caught them harboring illegals, and only because they actually caught them directing or deflecting ICE agents from arresting someone who they had the authority. So they do it in the most egregious of cases, and maybe that's going to have a ripple trickle down effect in terms of deterring the criminality. I don't think it will. So I think, you know, it's a good start, but it needs to go a whole hell of a lot more. Leticia James, what's her face out of Fannie Willis, Judge Engoron, Judge Marchand, like, go after these judges, scratch the surface. You will find not something that you can exploit, but something that you can legitimately prosecute because they are bona fide criminals. They're bona fide judges that should be impeached, and you need to start somewhere. It's a good start with the few that they have, but there are many more that are very easy targets, eat low-hanging fruits in order to go after this corruption and fight fire with fire, but not in the terms of abusing it the way they have.
Right. I wonder if the bigger issue is just that what motivates a Republican-leaning individual is different from what motivates a Democrat. And so maybe the Trump administration, the DOJ, their concerns are, look, let's just win and secure power now and deal with these individuals later. I feel like Democrats, they go after Trump's lawyers, they go after innocent people because they want you to fear that they will crush you. However, as we've already seen with far-left terror, violence, they don't actually fear going to prison. I mean, they think it won't happen, and they sing songs when they do get arrested. So if the Trump administration were to say, okay, I'm going to go after these people and arrest them, I don't think it would be a deterrent. These people want to get arrested. If you look at what happened with the ICE facility in Newark, they were saying that some of these Democrat individuals who showed up after the fact, the second protest, were volunteering to be arrested. They want to be arrested. Yeah. They want the martyrs.
Well, there's volunteering to be arrested like Greta Thunberg, and then there's actually getting arrested and actually facing serious jail time for things that you can't politically weasel your way out of. So yeah, they want to get arrested until they, find out that they're going to go to jail for an extended period of time, and then they'll start sobbing too. The only problem is they don't fear getting arrested because, like those two New York firebombing attorneys who got a slap on the wrist, or Kevin Kleinsmith, the lawyer who falsified, they know that in the regime, because at the lower levels of the regime, it's still, a lot of TDS afflicted individuals who are going to let them off with a slap on the wrist or even compensate them afterwards. What has to happen is real, meaningful justice where it will serve as a deterrent effect. I think if Leticia James, the head of the Black Lives Matter, if they go to jail for fraud, legit fraud, which is, I'm convinced, is what's going on here, they won't be laughing anymore. And if they go to jail for legit obstruction of police officers doing their business or criminal trespass, they won't be laughing anymore, especially when they suffer the fallout consequences that comes along with having a criminal record. So again, it's not a question of lying, manufacturing evidence like they did against Trump. It's just a question of scratching the surface, revealing it, and then unleashing the fury of a legit utilized legal system.
But I do wonder, because I agree, but I guess my point is the Trump administration just saying, listen, we don't want to spend the limited hours we have with our staff going after these people. We want to spend the limited hours making sure that we get rid of voter fraud, sealing the border, and winning in like the mass deportations, I think, is not just about economics or Trump's promises. I think Trump's kind of like, this is how they cheat elections. They give themselves extra electoral college votes. So I'm wondering if they're just saying, look, if we could do everything we could, we're going to focus on what we can to win and then give ourselves 20 years of leeway to go after these people.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're doing a lot, and so the question, you can always say they could be doing more. They could be focusing here and not there. Yeah, look, they're getting started on it. Whether or not they don't have the resources or they don't want to dedicate the resources, they've got endless resources, so they should be going after the big targets. But they should be going after the big, I say, spiritually or politically meaningful targets. How much investigation would it require to find criminality with Adam Schiff? Why hasn't he faced any sort? I mean, he overtly lied to the American people. Whether or not he got censured for it. How hard would it be? Just these are people who have committed brazen, open, at the very least, dishonesty. At the very worst, much worse. Scratch the surface and look into these guys and make examples of the most prominent, I would say, ideological terrorists on the left. Goldman, Schiff. Nadler, he might be past his prime. Leticia James, Fannie Willis, Engeron, Merchant, that Jenna Griswold. I mean, this is where they should be going after. Go after a dozen. They got resources, but pick a good dozen that are gonna send political shockwaves through the system, so that even the Democrats are going to say, maybe we should just stop being a bunch of hysterical babies and settle down a little.
I do want to add that when news broke that there was a criminal referral for Leticia James, it was from William Pulte. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, of all of the people you'd expect to come out with a fist on the table, slamming it, saying we are coming for the corruption. No disrespect, but it's fascinating that William Pulte was the guy. He's Federal Housing Finance Administration, and he's like, Leticia James committed mortgage fraud. It appears she should be criminally charged. They launch an investigation. You'd think it'd start with like the DOJ, like Cash Patel, Dan Bongino. Patel. Yeah.
No, no,
it's the housing guy.
the big names are the guys who are there to do it, which is why there's no shade on Cash Patel. I think he might be entering the house of skeletons and saying, holy crap, it's worse than I thought. But when he comes out and says, yeah, we got a custom border agent who committed fraud for some, home renovations, like nobody cares about that. The judges.
Wait, did he do that?
There was one person they said who recouped monies and compensation for damages from a flood or something, and then she wasn't staying at a hotel. Like thousands of dollars of insurance fraud. Who gives a sweet bugger all? We want the Epstein files. Yeah. We want, and we'll give them time. We want the P. Diddy files. Like P. Diddy now. We've got another case where there's RICO sex trafficking and seemingly only one person involved in it, P. Diddy. Horse crap. So we know there's big targets out there. They should start going after the big targets. They're starting slowly. Leticia James is a good start, but there are so many others who deserve it and who undoubtedly are guilty of it. Fight fire with fire, but only within the realms of the bounds of the law.
Right on, man. Well, Viva, I really do appreciate you joining me to have this conversation. Where can people find you?
VivaFrei. I'm going to be live on Rumble at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Daily live shows at 4. And then Sunday night, we have our Viva and Barnes Law Extravaganza at 6 o'clock. And no, Tim, one thing, the Democrats, you mentioned to me, I have now lived long enough to appreciate the expression that liberalism is a mental disorder. And when you're talking about people who don't mind going to jail, I genuinely believe it's because the most prominent, vocal, and politically and financially rewarded of those people are fundamentally mentally unwell. And so that's why they behave publicly the way that they do. But at the lower levels, I think, liberalism, progressivism, Democrats mean well, but they have narcissist, pathological leaders that need to be made an example of, politically speaking, people.
I agree. Right on, man. Well, I guess people will catch you at 4 p.m. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good one, brother.
Yeah.
That was the great Viva. Really great to have him have that conversation. And many people are calling for the pardoning of Derek Chauvin. So I completely agree with his view on this. What will it accomplish for the Trump administration? However, I'm going to say I think morally and it should be done. They just need to figure out how they make sure he's going to be taken care of. Because we already talked about, you pardon him, he just goes to state prison. He's worse off. All right, we're going to send you all to Russell Brand. Before we do, we'll grab some Rumble rants here. Dom Kogan says he didn't even call for his mother. He was calling for his girlfriend, Mama. Candace Owens exposed this on one of her interviews. Correct. Mama was the name of his girlfriend. Pinochet says, Tim arguing with AI, ignoring the fact that AI will always possess the biases and ideology of its creators. I know. I am aware. Yeah. Dom McGowan says, Steven Crowder has done one. Is that what he's saying? Kneeling on his neck for over 9 minutes. It's a good watch. I remember that. People got so mad at Crowder. They were like, how dare you do this stunt? Because he actually had a guy kneel on his neck to show, So let's see. I think we should have Russell Brand. Unless I'm mistaken. Maybe he's, here we go. Russell Brand is gearing up to go live. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be wrapping up that noon hour. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone. Follow me on X and Instagram at TimCast. We are back tonight at 8 p.m. Rumble.com/TimCastIRL. See, I got to break those habits. Rumble.com/TimCastIRL. Live tonight. Guys, everyone, come join us. We have, we are hosting this news conversation every single night. Tonight, I believe, let me show you the guest. We've got Evan Bozer. So we'd love to have you. It'll be fantastic. And thanks to all of you who watch. Timcast IRL is averaging the second biggest news show in the world behind Steven Crowder. Shout out to Steven Crowder and the Mug Club. He's got a great show. Just when you're good, you're good. We don't beat Steven. We got him one day, but he has a great show, and we're big fans. And I really do appreciate all of you tuning in for this morning show. And again, Timcast IRL tonight at 8 p.m. We actually put up billboards all over the country. Maybe you've seen them. Big old Rumble logo on it. 8 p.m. Rumble. Check it out. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, and we will see you all tonight.